Welcome to the Leader's Pause, where leaders like you tune in to find calm, get clear, and level up. Tune in with best-selling author, speaker, and coach Hal Runkel as he helps you take back your time, your energy, and your decision-making power. All you have to do is learn to press your own pause button first. So, take a break, take a breath, take a knee, and learn to access your greatest human superpower, the ability to pause, think, and decide for yourself. It's time to find calm, get clear, and level up. The Leader's Pause starts now.
Good afternoon, evening, wherever you are, leaders. It is thrilling to be with you again for the Leader's Pause. I'm your host, Hal Runkel, and I have a question to begin. Is your mind full? As in, too full, overloaded, overwhelmed with data, just constantly barraged by a million possible distractions. If you are alive in the 21st century and in an industrialized nation, my guess is your answer is yes, if you're above the age of 5. Unfortunately, probably even younger than that. But our minds are quite full. And that is the actual topic of today's show, but in a very different way. Because what we're going to do is talk about a remedy for having your mind too full, and that is learning to be mindful. Ironically, we've all heard about mindfulness. It is one of the buzzwords everywhere, and I believe it should be. I believe it is one of the gifts from ancient traditions that is now being kind of unearthed and fully realized for all of us. Doesn't matter who you are. Learning to be mindful has so many potential benefits for you that you may not be aware of because perhaps you've got still some, like we all do, some, some barriers to embracing mindfulness because you kind of still have some stigmas attached to it. Maybe you think of it as some woo-woo thing that only gurus do in India or Buddhists in other parts of the world, or just it's the latest fad and you don't like to participate in those things. There's lots of different reasons, but mostly it's usually from some form of ignorance that we're just not aware of actually what it is. Or maybe for you, you've tried some sort of practice of mindfulness and it has not gone well, or you didn't have a great teacher, or it was just misleading in some way. And so that's why I liked the question to begin with, is your mind full? Because the paradox is mindfulness is a way of beginning to empty your mind. Paradoxically, it's still called mindfulness. And what we're going to do today is kind of unpack what is mindfulness, what does it look like? How do you get started? What are the benefits? Why are we even discussing it? Why is it something to consider? And let's start with just an exercise. Is think about one thing. Just try to think about one thing. My voice. The car you're in. Some got one thing. How long can you hold that attention on just one thing? My guess is your grandparents could do it better than you could. They didn't have nearly as many options to distract them. Now, do we all have thoughts, racing thoughts? Yes. Have humans always had that? Yes. But our thoughts are filled with so much more possibilities, so many more options, so much more data that I would guess, just concentrating on one thing is incredibly difficult compared to our grandparents or our parents, going back generations, because we're surrounded by everything that can take us anywhere but here. In fact, I'm waiting for someone, maybe somebody already has. If they has, send me an email, hal@halrunkel.com. Let me know. Has somebody written the book called Anywhere But Here? Because that really is the theme of this 21st century, is we have the possibility of being anywhere but right here. And so it annoys us when other people do it, we're talking to somebody and they pick up their phone and they're paying attention, but they're not. By the way, next time you do that, that happens to you, there's an easy way to introduce a new way of being with that person without a direct open confrontation. Is you're talking to somebody and they start glancing at their phone, just stop talking. Just stop talking and wait for them. See how long it takes them to notice that, oh, somebody was talking to me and I completely dismissed them because I chose to look at my phone. Which, guess what? We've all done. I did it to my wife just a couple hours ago. It is so easy to do. But my wife and I do have this practice now where we'll just stop talking. And then we'll look up and we'll just say, I'll wait till you're done. Because we're not going to compete with something we can't beat. No, none of us can beat the power of this thing in our pockets, in our hands. None of us can compete with because it can take us anywhere but here. Mindfulness is the opposite. It is choosing to be absolutely here. It is recognizing that the only thing that matters right now is the here, the now, and the real. And in so many ways, that is everything the leader's pause is about, is finding a way to train ourselves to have moments at least where we can concentrate on the only thing that actually exists, the here, the now, and the real. Mindfulness is a practice that can look a lot of different ways. It can incorporate meditation, but it is bigger than meditation. Meditation is a very specific tactic towards mindfulness. But mindfulness ultimately is not some woo-woo in the clouds thing that is going to lead you to suddenly be using crystals and checking the astrology updates every day. If you do that, more power to you. But you don't have to do that in order to be mindful. All you have to do is pause. What we talk about on the show all the time, the leader's pause. All you have to do is learn to pause. Then observe. Check something out. Just do it for 10 seconds. Might be harder than you think, but it is just this recognition that I actually am a lot more in charge of where my eyes, where my attention, where my ears, where my brain goes, than everything around me would lead me to believe. Because everything around me is leading me, asking me to pay attention. Just saw this great slide the other day. Great expert on mindfulness, Dr. Chris Willard, and he has a slide that says ways to pay in the 21st century. And it's like cash, American Express, PayPal, and attention. It is the attention economy because everything is competing for our eyeballs for the slight chance that we will see an ad and then act on it. And it is in every device that we have. It's on every screen that we have. It is surrounding us. And so that's why mindfulness has never been more important, because it's never been more difficult, which means it's never been more valuable. Just think about the last time you had an encounter with somebody and it really did seem as if to that person there was nothing else in the world. Now, if you've never had an encounter like that, I hate that for you. It is what I strive to do, and I'm probably batting, I don't know, 11% on it, but it is something I strive to do. It's certainly something I strive to do in my coaching practice with my clients. My aim is to be the best listener you've ever encountered. That's my aim. And so I've got to constantly challenge myself to find even more ways, better ways to pay attention. How do I do that? Well, I train myself. That's the practice of mindfulness, is I want to train my brain so that I can pay more attention to the things that matter most, to the people that matter most, to the conversations that matter most. How can I train my brain to give the attention to that which has deserved it, to that which has earned it. This is a practice that never, ever goes away. It never gets, you never accomplish it because guess what? The world obviously is going to create new ways constantly to rid us of mindfulness. And again, ironically, they're going to do it by filling our mind. So mindfulness, you think about it as like exercise for your greatest asset. It's the practice of nurturing the one thing that matters more than anything, and that is your brain. Your brain, which your mind is the conscious part of your brain, is the most valuable thing in the universe, the human brain. But your human brain is the most valuable thing in your universe. Nothing happens without your brain. So mindfulness is a way of trying to train my brain to pay attention to the things that I really actually, when I'm in my right mind, when I'm thinking my best, these are the things I want to pay attention to. I want to notice my kids. I want to notice my significant other when she or he talks directly to me. I want to notice the uh, beauty in the world when every single news source wants to crowd my mind with all of its ugliness. I want to notice the beauty. I want to find kernels of truth, wisdom that you have to mine for through all of the noise and junk that fills our heads and surrounds our lives and surrounds our eyeballs and ears. I want to notice. And so, in some ways, that's a great way to begin. When we come back from the break, we're about to go to a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about, okay, what are ways that I can actually nurture this? What are ways I can practice this? What does it look like when it's in practice? What's interesting is that, again, it doesn't have to be woo-woo. There are so many people who are incredibly devoted to their own mindfulness practice that would surprise you. I think one of the biggest surprises is a comedian that you know and that you love, that you, well, you might not love him, but you know him because he's one of the most successful comedians in history, one of the most successful shows, TV shows in history. And he has been practicing a form of mindfulness for like 40 years. And he ties it directly to his ability to deliver good comedic material. There's lots of other people who would surprise you that are devoted to nurturing mindfulness for themselves. And the basic reason is that they've just come to recognize I'm saner when I do it. I am calmer when I do it. I'm more effective. I'm more productive. I'm more attentive. I sleep better. I feel better. It is remarkable. The data is completely incontrovertible. It's completely, the case is closed. Mindfulness works for every great thing you're wanting to accomplish. Mindfulness is an answer. So when we come back, I'm going to tell you who that comedian is. It's going to surprise you probably. And also, we're going to talk about, all right, what does it look like in practice? And how would I get started? How do I know when I'm being mindful? How when I'm not? So all of that coming right up, plus more, coming right up after this break from the Leader's Pause, and we will be right back. Host Hal Runkel. If you ever want to reach out to me directly, just email me, hal@halrunkel.com, HALRUNKEL. And I'm coming to you from Studio 34. And if you have a clue as to why I call this Studio 34, send me an email and I'll send you a free book if you get it right. So we're talking about mindfulness for leaders, and I want to talk about the leaders aspect for a bit. What in the world, how in the world can mindfulness benefit a leader? Well, when you're in any sort of leadership position, whether you're a parent or a president or an executive chef or chief executive, it puts you in a position where people are depending on the functioning of your brain. So many people are depending on the functioning of your brain. It is your number one asset. more valuable than any money, more valuable than any position or possession. It is your asset that gives you the ability to make decisions and communicate and do whatever. So think of mindfulness as the practice of nurturing and caring for your greatest asset, particularly as a leader. And it's more and more valuable because it's becoming more and more rare. Again, I asked before the break, I asked, when's the last time you encountered somebody where in the conversation it seemed as if you were the only thing that mattered to that person, that they were hanging on your next word, not because they worshiped you, but just because they were interested. And if you haven't encountered somebody like that, I hope you do soon, but the chances are getting rarer and rarer because we are being more and more surrounded and bombarded with every possible distraction that would take us away from paying that kind of attention. And so when you are a leader wanting to communicate, here's where we are, here's where we're going, here's what matters most to us, here are the values that are going to determine our next steps, here are our goals, here are our pursuits. You're wanting those messages to actually land well. Well, when you are mindful, then your brain has a chance to organize those thoughts. It has a chance to communicate them at a pace, in a tone, in a way that people can actually hear them. And then you can deliver them in a way that people want to actually receive it. But that's the effect of somebody who does practice mindfulness, where they regularly take time. And that's really what it looks like, is just taking time to pause and notice. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes. It can be. It doesn't have to be 10 hours like some monk in Nepal. It can be. It is, but it is an intentional effort to notice. Notice what's in front of you. And sometimes it can be concentrating on one very specific thing. Sometimes it can be just pause and notice everything around you that you're seeing, that you're hearing. Notice it without making any judgment about it. Just observe it. Now, here's what's really fascinating is when you can take those powers of observation, you can get better at them. Constantly get better at them, noticing them, look deeply at something. Look at one object and notice as if you've never seen it before. Then what can happen is you can get even better at noticing your thoughts about the thing you're noticing. Who is thinking your thoughts right now? That's an interesting thought I hadn't had before. Well, who said that? The real you. Which means you are not your thoughts. You are the one thinking your thoughts, but you're also the one observing your thoughts. It gets really kind of weird when you step back and think about it, but I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. I'm not even my actions. Those are things that I, whoever the I is, those are the things that I do. So the beauty of, and I promise this is going somewhere, the beauty of beginning to notice things around you is because it enhances your ability to notice things within you. And that helps you detach yourself from the thoughts, because if I'm observing something, then I am not that thing. So I am not the thought. I mentioned before the break about a comedian who practices mindfulness in a very, very powerful way and has for 40 years. Well, that comedian is named Jerry Seinfeld. And he practices something called transcendental meditation, which is more traditional, using a mantra or a sound, but concentrating, silencing, quieting everything and just thinking about the sound and nothing else. But what he credits that with is his ability to deliver comedy. Because what we see on a Netflix special, an hour Netflix special that a comedian does, well, that comedian has been working for at least a year in small clubs all over the country on that material, testing it out. Because by the time he gets to the Netflix special, That comedian wants to know every single inflection point, every tone, every message, every word choice has to be perfect. And it's got to sound as if it's just coming right off the cuff. That's why I think comedians are the best public speakers on the planet. Well, Seinfeld had to detach himself from any particular joke because he can love a joke, but if it doesn't work with the audience, he's got to get rid of it. It's not going to work. So he says, you know what? I detach myself enough through meditation, through which lead to my mindfulness, where I just recognize these are jokes trying out for my baseball team. I'm the one selecting the baseball team. I've got to find players that I can then put out on the field. And I'm going to try them out. And if they don't get a laugh, okay. Even if I loved it, it doesn't matter. My goal is to make the audience laugh. So I've got to detach myself from that. Writers have to do the same thing. It's very, very difficult. If you're writing, it's painting. If you're creating anything, if you're a chef, any act of creating, but it can be you're making a mission statement for your company, or you're really wanting this one effort. But the more you try it, the product's just not selling. Detach from it so that you can notice your attachment to it. I really want that to happen, even though it's not working. Well, how many times do I need to see it not work before I'm finally convinced to let it go? That's a mindful thought. And it happens because you are practicing mindfulness. So how do you practice? Step outside. Take a break, a 5-second break. Step outside, look at a tree. I'm a big, big proponent of nature and getting out in nature as part of your nurturing your brain. And it's great. We now know the research says take small breaks. That's bigger than one big break during the day. Take 5 minutes out of every hour, walk around. If you can step outside, step outside. Notice a tree. Think of nothing but the tree. There's something athletes, high-end athletes do a lot of. You'll see baseball players, just watch them in the middle of the game, and they'll be just looking up at something. Well, so many of them have been trained in mindfulness in order to increase their powers of concentration, which they need for such a difficult sport, where they will look at a foul pole, the top of the foul pole, and think of nothing but that foul pole, and just look at it. And what that does is clear out so much of the noise so that when it comes time for them to look at the baseball, their brain is already trained to be able to concentrate on one specific thing. But that's the beauty of it, is it doesn't take much to practice. It just takes an intentional effort to stop, pause, look at a tree, look at a blade of grass, look at your hand. Makes me think of this WKRP in Cincinnati. Some of you Gen Xers who grew up on that show like I did. And Johnny Fever once said, "You ever really get in your hand, man?" We can notice anything, and that enhances our brain power, which is your greatest asset. Just commit to noticing. Now, can you devote yourself to a more intentional practice where you're getting in a position? Yes. And are there apps that can help you do that? Yes. The Calm app is my favorite. Headspace is another one. I really do like the Calm app. They have guided meditations, all of which is designed to increase your mindfulness. That I'm going to become mindful of my surroundings. I'm going to be mindful of what's going on within me. But ironically, it's going to make me have a less full mind. That's our show. This has been The Leader's Pause. I'm your host, Hal Runkel. Thank you so much for listening. Reach out to me, hal@halrunkel.com. Otherwise, have an amazing, mindful rest of the week.
You have been listening to The Leader's Pause with Hal Runkel, the show that helps leaders like you find calm, get clear, and level up. Tune in every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio to access your greatest superpower, the ability to pause, think, and decide for yourself. Book a conversation with Hal today. Visit halrunkel.com.